Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to continue to talk about Tress of the Emerald Sea because there's some Cosmere connections that were in the book that I really want to talk about. So yeah, that's what this video is going to be about. So make sure you leave a comment down below. Make sure you let me know of any Cosmere connections that I may have missed that are on my list or ones that I just completely didn't see. So yeah, join the conversation, make a contribution, and let's get all Cosmere rambly. So yeah, with that being said, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and let's begin. So I have, what is it? One, two, three, four, five. I have about 12 or 13 different Cosmere connections that I noticed while listening to Tress of the Emerald Sea. And there are some that kind of lead me to interesting theories and stuff. So I just kind of want to talk about them here a little bit, kind of list them off. And you all please let me know in the comments below if there's any that I missed that you noticed that I didn't notice, or which one is your favorite. What is the one that's most interesting that has you theory crafting the most? Because there's one that particularly has me theory crafting. So yeah, let's go ahead and talk about it. So first up, I want to talk about some of the very obvious ones, some of the ones that it's really hard to miss. So yeah, let's start off with Aethers. Of course, Aethers are, huge in the book because it's basically the primary magic system. So of course, Aethers are a thing. But we have also gotten mentions of Aethers in Stormlight Archive. Like one of the characters there has what appears to be some rosite crystal, and we have also had mention of Midnight Essence before. So it's kind of hard to tell whether or not that's specifically talking about Midnight Aether or if it's like a term that has somehow made its way around the Cosmere. But I do have some thoughts about that one, so we'll talk about that a little bit more. So the next really obvious one is Ulan. Ulan, the doctor on the ship. He is a Kandra. He is from Scadrial, as we talked about in the previous video. And he's one of my favorite characters in the story. He's so much fun. He's really cool. But one of the things that I was thinking most about is the fact that Hoyt says like he's different since Sazed had released them. I did also mention this in my review video, but again, I wonder if it is just a reference to when Sazed basically stopped requiring all the Kandra to basically be an extension of God, to be under the his control the way they were under the control of Ruin, or if it's in reference to something that's happened later. Because, of course, this video has full Cosmere spoilers. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that before, but full Cosmere spoilers for all the books that have come out so far. So I'm wondering if this is a further hint to the idea of discord. So this idea that harmony will be out of balance or find some different sort of balance, and the shards, like, polarization will become more discord than harmony. So I wonder if that has something to do with, like, when he becomes Discord, he releases all the Kandra and be like, you don't even have to stay on this planet or, do any of my bidding at all. So I'm kind of speculating that it's somewhere like that, but it could just be simply, what we know. Like Sazed says they can go be their own people. They don't have to be extensions of his will anymore, which is probably just that, Occam's razor and all. So yeah. Ryan, I can't say her name, but the sorceress. She's an Elantrian. That's another pretty clear, pretty, low-hanging fruit one right there. She's totally an Elantrian. She's from planet Cell, and she appears to be one of the members of the Irie that Kelsier met during Mistborn Secret History. I'm pretty sure she is one of them, but the description, granted the description we got that she's like in her upper 50s, but the Irie and Secret History, to me, at least my impression was that they looked much older, that they looked probably hundreds of years old or something. But that could also have been an instance of like the amount of vestige they had access to or whatever. It could have been a number of things. But we also don't know where in the timeline this story is. I doubt that it could be like before she went to Shadesmar trying to get preservation or whatever. So she probably is one of those particular Irie, which is what would explain the way Hoyt is able to get Aeon Door, the way he's able to make a deal with them, and it allows membership and it gives him like a weaker version of full Elantrian powers. So that's probably definitely Irie kind of thing. I would like to get some more information on that because there's definitely some workings in there that's probably really fascinating. So another one of them that are pretty obvious because it's straight up called out is Fort's word board. His basically his tablet is Nalthian tech. I talked about it a bit in my review video as well, that Nalthvis, of course, would end up getting to a point where they have technology based around their magic, and it's really cool. So again, it does make me wonder where in the timeline this sits. So I really like it, though, the fact that they were also clearly able to just get another one after it was broken. And there's also plenty of mentions of like wizards from the stars and stuff. So that implies that there's multiple people that have come to this planet like that. I don't even know if they technically should be called world hoppers. I mean, they are world hopping, but like the sorceress, they're essentially astronauts. Because something I forgot to mention in my review video is when she leaves the planet, she leaves in a spaceship. Her entire castle on the island is a spaceship. So does that mean that either the Irie have access to intergalactic spacefaring technology, or is that something that is now happening on Cell? Because Cell is very far back in the timeline, at least Elantris is, the story is. So it could be a lot of time in between this story and that story, and they could have hit the space age or something by this point, or at least, small sections of people have, or maybe it's an Irie thing. I don't know, but either way, it's fascinating. And if it is an indication or a hint that we are reaching the space age a little bit quicker, then I am really, really excited for the next era of Mistborn, because I know Brandon wants to do something, at some point he wants to get to space opera. Mistborn is what he was saying, where we get full Cosmere crossover going planet to planet to planet. I'd be really hyped if we could get that a lot sooner, and I don't have to wait till I'm in my 50s to read it. So, yeah. All right, the next one is also very obvious. It's very straightforward. It is the dragon. The dragon whose name I can't pronounce. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. But I wonder if this dragon is the dragon that was kind of offhandedly mentioned in The Lost Meadow. There is a mention of a dragon that lives at the bottom of a sea and like doesn't care about treasure. I don't know. But it's basically saying it lives at the bottom of a sea, and this one lives at the bottom of the Crimson Sea, the bottom of the Aether. So I wonder if it probably was in reference to that one. I need to go back and reread Lost Meadow and try to put these little pieces together a little bit more. But I wonder if this is a fairly famous dragon, because how many I don't know. Dragons are very rare in the Cosmere. They only come from Yolen, and they're very intelligent and very interesting, and they're naturally shapeshifters. So there could be all kinds of dragons around, just not in the form that we would expect. But if you like dragon, they're dragons. They're mysterious and they're secretive and stuff, and they're really cool. So I just really want to know more. I want to know about his research. I want to know what he's figured out, what he knows about Aethers, what he's figured out about other levels of investiture, how all that works. So yeah, I really want like a Silmarillion of Cosmere stuff. I really hope Brandon at some point at least does it like every couple of years, every decade or something like that. Maybe does like a huge Arcanum, like a Silmarillion equivalent, but just Arcanum, because Arcanum Unbound and stuff like that. That would be a lot of fun. So those are my the few that I have that I was thinking about, the connections that were very clear, that were very right there. You have to be basically barely reading the book to miss these references, but some of them have little extensions to them. But there are a few others that are like very minor, and it's kind of a blink and you miss it sort of thing, some of them. So I want to talk about some of those too, because they're really fascinating, because they have like implications in the same way that like Trail being on Taldane and White Sand somehow made his way to Scadrial and became like a whole thing. So there's this other one. There's this offhanded mention really early in the book about the Irie, or the Iriali. So the Iriali are a race of people, I guess, more so a race of people because they appear to either have originated from another planet or whatever the hell. But the Iriali apparently were on this planet, which I think is called Lumar, something like that. But I thought that was really fascinating, and it's just kind of a very offhanded reference. These are people that we know to live on Roshar, and apparently they were on this planet before, and they're also, if I'm not mistaken, they're like islanders. They are used to like island life. So coming from this planet where they definitely would have lived on an island is probably analogous to what they're doing on Roshar. So I'm really interested to know if these are the same people or if this is just a coincidence in names. But the Trail thing wasn't a coincidence in name, even though it went from like Trellism to Trelligism, like kind of thing. So there was room to say that, oh, it's just a coincidence of naming or whatever. But the chances of Brandon doing that twice are probably very limited. Actually, 3 or 4 times, because there's another example with a similar kind of setup. So yeah, I don't think that's a coincidence. I think it's definitely a hint. The AVR. If I'm not mistaken, I think the bird that was, they were talking about birds at one point. I need to go back. Of course, I'm going to reread it or listen to it. But there's a mention of what I think was probably an aviar. Like it sounds like the description of basically. I mean, I guess considering this planet seems to have very Earth analogous kind of animals and creatures and things, which I find a little strange because that ecology just can't make. It just can't work. Whatever, fantasy, fun stuff, doesn't matter. But based on the description, I was wondering if some of the birds that they're talking about in that one instance was talking about aviar, or maybe they're just talking about regular birds or something, because that planet clearly has regular birds. So I don't know, but if it's an aviar, that's really cool. That's like a shout out to Sixth of the Dust, to kind of a shout out to like the sentient islands from Sixth of the Dust. Another one that's kind of blink and you miss it, but kind of not really, because I've seen online a lot of people are harping on it. So Tress at some point makes a reference to death, like death comes for her with nails in his eyes or something like that. And it made me think like the only character, death with nails in his eyes, that sounds like Iron Eyes. That sounds like Marsh, the person he has become in Scadrian religion. Like he is the personification of death now. So I'm wondering, is that a coincidence? But no, in Brandon, coincidences are far and few between. Like some stuff could just be coincidence, but it's probably not really coincidence. It's like, how would that? I mean, I guess Trail, but Trail was seeded by autonomy. But I don't know. Like, so it just makes me wonder. Like, how would that have gotten to that planet? How would modern day Scadrial religious ideology have made it all the way to Lumar, which clearly doesn't have a perpendicularity? I don't think it does because there's no shard on this planet. At least Hoy doesn't make a mention of a shard or anything. So I wouldn't think there is. But then that leads me to wonder, how the hell did he get there? Like, or does Hoy have another way to... but, yeah. So it just leaves me confused. How did Hoy get there if there's no perpendicularity? Because I don't believe there's a shard, so there wouldn't be a perpendicularity on the planet. And the sorceress, she used a straight up spaceship, and this is the backwater of the Cosmere. So, how did Hoy get there? That's an interesting question. I wonder. Does he have some extra transportation abilities that we don't know about? I wonder. I mean, given he probably does, or maybe he just knows older ways. Because I imagine there was other ways to do that before Ad Nauseam was shut. I'm sorry. This is getting me off on just a complete speculation, just brain, just bleh. All right, so the next one that's probably easy to miss if you aren't paying that much attention is the mention of the sorceress's soldiers. She has like automatons, essentially. See, the description makes them sound more like metal, so I'm wondering more like the men of gold and red from autonomy soldiers or whatever. It probably wouldn't be them, obviously. But then given all the awakening abilities, all the Nalthian tech that's around, it makes me wonder, are these lifeless or are these like a form of lifeless? Are they like metal suits that have been awakened? Because if you got enough purified investiture, I doubt you need all those thousands of breaths, because you can shortcut it with the equivalency of liquid investiture, which I believe is more potent than gaseous investiture, so it probably wouldn't take as much. So the idea of her having fully awakened metal suit type lifeless is plausible. Or using the combination of Aeon Door plus that kind of stuff. Like, there could probably be all sorts of ways that she could do that is limited on Nalthus that wouldn't be limited to her. So those could be lifeless, awakened, like suits of armor or something that are her automatons. It's almost definitely using awakening type magic, though, to make this work. So I'm really curious as to how that works out. It seems pretty fascinating. This one is more speculation, not really a blinking you miss it kind of thing, but they make mention of bone spores, which just makes me think of like bone spurs, like whatever, like bone spores. So like white spores, but based on the description of it and the way they're talking about it, I'm not even sure if it's an aether. It makes me think it's white sand, because that could be a thing, because the fluidization process that happens on this planet could easily happen on Dayside. And the vines that are up under the sand too are almost like verdant aether and stuff too. So there's some interesting parallels there. So there could be white sand on this. Would it be a lot though? Like, how does that work? Like, there's so many questions. This planet seems like the trash dump of random investiture and Cosmere stuff, because like the aethers aren't even on the planet. They're on the moons. This is essentially the byproduct that's being spewed onto the planet. So there's just so much that is like irregular essentially about this planet. So it's really, really cool and I dig it. Another one is the Luel bond. It's similar to the Niel bond, but it is not as permanent and, two-way directional as the Luel bond. So it's kind of interesting. It's a symbiotic, almost parasitic bond. It's pretty much feeding the aether water in order for it to do what you want it to do. This seems to only really happen with Midnight Essence, with the Midnight Aether, because it's the most active one, at least of the aethers that we've seen so far. So it's kind of interesting. But again, speaking of Midnight Essence and speaking of the Midnight Aether, this is the thing that is ultimately my theory that is based on this. Because like I said, Brandon has done things that could be coincidental from one planet to another or one time frame to another. But he then, in Lost Metal, kind of confirmed that that wasn't just coincidental, it was on purpose. So I'm wondering if this is on purpose too. So in, I believe, not Way of Kings, in I think it was Oathbringer actually. Yeah, when they got to Urithiru in Stormlight Archive, there was it was an Oathbringer. Shallan ended up giving a mission to basically clear out the Crystal Pillar room, and Rayshafir was in there, the Midnight Mother. So when Shallan went and like touched her and like all the forms and stuff Rayshafir was making, like the figure that was copying humanity, that little like black humanoid figurine thing or whatever, that was like imitating violence in the tower and stuff and killing people, that could easily have been Midnight Aether. That could have been Black Aether. Like, it feels like it based on the description, the oil slick and the near formlessness and the ability to squeeze through tight spaces and stuff. And when it was attacked, it like bled black smoke, kind of like when it's dismissed and stuff. But it kind of implied it still, after it had been killed, it like, there was like a husk of a body remaining. So I don't know if that is more like a pure aether thing instead of the byproduct that's happening on the planet. Like, so, but then that just leaves me all these kind of questions. Like, where would an unmade of Odium get access to an aether? Or are aethers, because aethers, at least according to Brandon, predate the shattering. And I think it's also in Lost Metal. Twin Soul says it. That some people think it may even predate Adonalsium themselves. But it predates the shattering, that's for sure. But Scadrial didn't exist. No, not Scadrial, Roshar. Roshar was made by Adonalsium. So if Black Aether, Midnight Essence, or whatever existed prior to that, then by the time Adonalsium was shattered and everybody got there, it could be feasible that there is an Aether around for, I guess, I don't know, would it have to have been like, well, no, I guess Odium wouldn't have bonded it. So, like, what if there was an Aether, like an Aether seed or whatever, however the primary one works that's similar to Twin Soul or something? What if it was one like that on Roshar, and when Rayshafir was unmade, she got access to it, or bonded with it, or maybe just the Aether itself was the thing that Odium unmade the cognitive aspect of it and turned into Rayshafir. That's why Rayshafir is one of the less cognitive minded, one of the less self-aware unmade. So that could be a thing. So there's just all kinds of levels of speculation going on with this. But that is kind of where I'm settling. I think one of the unmade has access to aethers, and Brandon has long since said aethers are important to the Cosmere, and they probably go deep and probably are like permeable going through the timeline and like plan multiple planets and stuff. So I kind of like it. I feel like it holds water, because if people just randomly speculating that Shai was going to become a world hopper because she doesn't like Hoyt, because Kelsier doesn't like Hoyt, and that would mean she joins the Ghost Blood. If that can just randomly turn out to be true after what felt like so little evidence, this could be true. I don't know. I hope it is. But I've been rambling for a good amount of time, so let me know in the comments down below. What was one of your favorite little Cosmere connections, and what do you think about my Midnight Mother, Midnight Essence, Aether idea? Do you agree with it? Does it sound plausible, or am I just all in my own head? Let me know about that in the comments down below. So as always, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and I will talk to you all next time. Peace.